most of you understand English, but only just few of them might be not very familiar with the English. Yeah. Okay. Um, I think I like to just to address something about why we have these eight precepts tradition in the Buddhism as well, okay, and why we have to observe the eight precepts. Okay? Uh, Especially in Chinese, I want to say Chinese meaning the Chinese tradition. Certainly, they might be sometime they have maybe a year, or once a year, or twice a year, even sometimes maybe more than that. They will hold this precepts ceremony for people who are interested in practice X precepts. Okay, to come to observe the X precepts. One of the big reason in traditionally in Chinese believe that if you could observe X precept well and observe try your best to observe the eight precepts, so then you will have gained a lot of great merits. The word in Chinese called 福报. Okay, and the merit itself will help you have a better life, especially, I mean, in traditionally say that, so because you have such a, at least in one day or 2 days, you are holding a good virtue within your mind. So when someone pass away, those who have those experience of observing these precepts, when they pass away, if they can contemplate, they have a wonderful time in the past, then they will be born to the heavens. And that's one of the great encouragement why in Chinese tradition they have this kind of ceremony for eight precepts. Certainly because of that, in China, I mean, whenever whoever doing this eight precepts ceremony, they mostly are very, very devoted, I mean, to practice it because they wanted to take this a day, just practice eight precepts. So normally, why anyone that observing eight precepts, not just only doing the eight precept, but then they have to practice what we call the sixth kind of mindfulness. Okay, that is mean beside you're knowing that you try to observe that what we are going to talk about later, the eight precepts, you also have to always keep your mind in a clean way, in a purified way. So only contemplate, either to contemplate the virtue of the Buddha or the names of the Buddha, or to understand what the Buddha means and what is the quality of the Buddha, and or you contemplate the virtue of the Dhamma, that means the teachings, or you contemplate the virtue of the Sangha, the community, those who have practiced, follow the Buddhist teachings and become the saints, like the first fruit, second fruit, third fruit, and fourth fruit, and so forth. Okay? Or you contemplate the virtue of how much virtue you develop already, and or you have to feel happy for what kind of virtue you have within you. And that's what we call the nian, in Chinese called nian jie. Or you have to contemplate the heavens. Basically, everyone can go to heavens to become the divine beings. So you think that because if you develop this virtue, so you could be also like one of them, that you can be born to the heavens because you develop a good virtue. And the last one is that the contemplate, I think it's contemplate, I sometimes get confused. I think it's contemplate the, the generosity. That means how generous you were, because you have developed a very good generosity by giving your time or by giving your money, for the welfare of the human beings. Those are the day-to-day practice. It's still very widespread, especially in Sri Lanka. I know that every full moon day and new moon day, people are still take this full moon or new moon day, especially the full moon day, that they will come to the temple, observe the sixth precept. But I like to talk about something about the essence of practicing, because of course a lot of people still practicing that. But they come to the temple, they are not really practicing it. They are just come to the temple, they think, oh, I do a good thing because I'm in a temple. They still have a very, very strong superstitious way of believing that because they come to the temple, everything is fine. Okay? If that's true, we live in a temple, we are all fine already. It's not true. We live here, we have many problems. Okay? If your mind is not clean, you still have a bigger problem. So it's not like because you live in a temple, you'll be fine, you'll be okay. So, I mean, this is our superstitious belief. But the same thing is that when you come to the temple, when you observe the 8 precepts, that you really need to practice it, develop it. That is for your own good, certainly is for the others as well. So what are these 6 precepts about? Certainly the first ones that you need to develop, try to observe not to kill, okay? Maybe at home you have to kill for many other reasons. Now here, when we say not to kill, so while you're doing the 8 precepts not to kill, you try. I don't mean that you have to, in a way mean that when you really accidentally kill something, you feel really bad. But here it means that you really have to try to not to kill even a small, kind of tiny living things, okay? So that's mean by not to kill. And also the second is not to not to steal, basically not to take anything is not given. So, maybe at home, while you're as your livelihood, sometimes for whatever reason you need to cheat to the government, cheat to anything. But this is not my business here now. But I want to say, but at least you definitely for sure that you're coming here to do the practice of meditation, you stay in the temple, but you try not to do those things. And I'm sure that this for a few days, if you observe it, you don't have to worry about that. So at least you have these 7 days here, observing these 8 precepts, just doing all purify that will develop your virtue. Okay. So I repeat again, firstly, it's not to kill even the small things. Of course, I don't have to say you don't have to kill human, but I mean, certainly you don't have to kill any, even a small, tiny insect if you can. Try your best, okay? But at home, you have to, because protect your house, protect your own living thing, and so on. You might be killed something, but here, you're coming to observe that because you really want to have a very good, pure life, okay? And the third one is not to commit any sexual activities. In here, when we say that not any sexual activity is not just about the corpus between, the men and women and corpus and this. Yeah, anything that relate to the sexual activities. So, something that may be touching something that maybe you feel good, you feel nice. Those are trying to avoid. So that's mean by avoid to all kind of anything that will give you a sexual gratification. And number 4 one is you also observe. They don't tell lie, but this is not easy. This is not tell lie is also not the easy one. You might be thinking, okay, here I'm just doing my meditation. Certainly, I would not have much opportunity or something like have much chance to speak lie, but you don't know because sometimes when you're doing your meditation. So in a way that you also lie to yourself in many ways, that also is a kind of lie, okay? Please just try to observe that as well, to only speak the truth word, okay? Otherwise, don't speak, Now here, I need to repeat this again. We are strongly suggest you to observe the noble silence. So the noble silence is very important for you. Maybe at time you find a little bit difficult because it asks you not to speak for a day or 2 or 3 days, might be easy, but ask you to observe that not to speak for 4 or 5 days, really very difficult, especially people who used to have to look for the message, Facebook, iPhone, iPad, on everything. Then, but then, so this is a time that learn that just to be yourself. So, and you have to try to learn to cherish this time. Okay. And please also try not to disturb the other. As I always say, if you really think that you need to speak to someone else for certain reasons, so limit yourself to speak to 5 sentences. I think that's enough for you to give the message already for 5 sentences. Am I right? Or do you think it's 10 or 20 or 30? Why nobody respond to me? Do you understand my English? So, right, if you find that it's 5 sentences enough to give a message, then that's it. Please learn if you really want to speak for somebody, for whatever reasons, 5 enough to give your message, okay? And the next one is the number 5th one is that certainly you observe not to take anything that is intoxicated. Now, nowadays, including drugs, okay? But I do come across in the past, people come to do meditation, and they took a lot different types of drugs. Because they find that, in America, of course, this is not my culture, but I have to respect that also. Some people believe that the drug will help them to do better meditation, okay? So I need to speak that again, at least from a Buddhist perspective. We are not shamanism, but in Buddhist perspective. So, and certainly, not only just not to drink that will make you heedlessly, but also to prevent or basically not to take any drugs as well. Oh, by the way, even sometimes medicine, but however, if you need some medicine because that's for your doctor prescription, you can take your medicine too, but I think the best to always talk to the teacher, okay? I mean, before you have chance to talk to teacher, please also take your medicine if that's what the doctor prescribed, okay? And the number 5th one I get, number 6th one is that something that you don't take after the noon, after the 12 o'clock, you know. But of course, I mean, I know that, I don't know how about now, but sometimes if you really feel really hungry, maybe you have some solid, some liquid thing, you know, may help you, then please do so. But usually if you take too much of food, then it might be not easy for you to do meditation because you're too full also. And also try to learn that during the lunchtime, after lunchtime or breakfast, don't take it like full, okay? So try to only eat about, usually we say about 70% or 80% full. You feel enough for your belly. Otherwise you feel drowsy all the time. And number 7 and the number 8 actually is related to something that you're trying to observe, which, you know, normally the daily people, if they are, they need to satisfy their mind, their senses. That is like, you know, you have to sleep on a very comfortable bed, sit on a very comfortable chair, like that. You know, that's what we do. But here you don't have a comfortable bed to sleep and a comfortable chair to sit. Rather, you just have to sit on a cushion or maybe some chair. So, but that's actually the importance. It's important for you to learn how to restrain yourself not to be indulged in that kind of gratification, in that kind of, you know, satisfying. And also that including the number 7 one, that including that you don't go to listen, you know, nice music, you don't go to see nice dancing, or even you need some fragrance or some ornament, try to make you look beauty and nice. Those what is actually socially needed, you know. However, because when you're observing the 8 precepts, that you need to try to avoid that and not to do this, because you need to just have to focus your mind and to find how you could find the happiness within yourself, but not based on the thing that you watch and the thing that you hear, like music. You know, I'm sure nowadays, I think maybe especially the young generation, not necessarily all, but so like, you know, every day they must have a listen music, otherwise they feel that life is like no meaning by that. But this is a time also for you to learn. Actually, you could put off all the stuff, but you could just, you know, doing something, observing yourself. But very important when you do this meditation, like Vipassana meditation. So even sometimes when you're sitting there and while you're doing when you leisure time while you're doing your meditation, if you feel your mind is not very happy, you still have to observe it, not to think, oh, this is bad, because that is the way that you have to understand how your mind works. Okay. Okay. The last thing I just want to mention is that, of course, in the old day or even in the modern time, it's true that a lot of people, maybe even during the Buddha's time, if you look at the sutra, so it's also many different religions or many different opinions, have different opinions about how someone can, you know, have a good virtual life. So they have a big debate in the past. The same thing even maybe now. When you say that, how can I have developed my mind can be better? How can I have a good virtual life so that I have a good future? Of course, they will tell you, why don't you go to see a movie? Or why don't you go to dance, right? Why don't you go for a party? Or some people say, why don't you go to see, you do something, you know, perhaps even some people say, why don't you just do some charity work, whatever. You know, there are so many different opinions. Maybe some are really very good for the humankind, maybe some are not, okay? But from a Buddhist perspective, because this is more about cultivation. So, and as I just said in the earlier time, the cultivation is, even if you, I mean, for those people who have never learned Vipassana, so the cultivation is the time that for people have to cultivate, to contemplate the generosity, the virtue, and then the heavenly beings, and as well as, you know, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and then the community. and the Sangha. So those are the major practice when you are observing the virtue. But now here, because you're observing this virtue, since this retreat is about the vipassana, and as I don't have to speak that because I had to give it back to the Shimam to speak that later on. I don't know how far she's going to explain, but I want to say, so there are many types of vipassana as well, so because the word vipassana actually is mean the insight meditation. But for those people who have been practice even just concentration method, you could find they have many billion way of doing even just breath, just the breath meditate method. They have, if you look at all the Buddhist tradition, from Chinese, from Tibetan, from Pali, even within the Pali, they have so many methods being described. So that you could imagine, if that is so many being described, then even the insight meditation are much more. Okay? And the detail are much more complicated, much complicated. So in any way, so the most easier to say understand the word vipassana mean collectively, to observe mean vipassana. But the many observe or the 5 aggregates, or what we call the 12 bases or 18 dhadus. So that's what the vipassana, the main purpose of vipassana. Okay, let's just take this 8 precept now, and so you may have to kneel down. And I'm going to speak chant the Pali because especially most of you know English. The Pali is much easier, for people who are familiar with English. The Chinese is really difficult for them to pronounce. OK， 还是你有那个麦吗？
โอคาซาอาหังปันเตทิสาลาเนเนสติมอัทังกาศิลัมดัมมัมยาชามิอนุกหังกัตวะศิลัมเตทะเมปันเตดุติยังปิโอคาซาอาหังปันเตทิสาลาเนเนสติมอัทังกาศิลัมดัมมัมยาชามิอนุกหังกัตวะศิลัมเตทะเมปันเตตาติยังปิโอคาซาอาหังปันเตทิสาลาเนเนสติมอัทังกาศิลัมดัมมัมยาชามิอนุกหังกัตวะศิลัมเตทะเมปันเตนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะ
พุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิ ตุติยัมปิพุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิตุติยัมปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิตุติยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิตติยัมปิพุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิตติยัมปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิตติยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิติสรณังกัมมนันสัมปุณนัง the number one ปานาธิปาตาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิ number two อปรมาจาริยาno sorry อดินนาดานาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิ number three บรหมจาริยาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิ number four มุสาวาทาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิ number five สุราเมรยมัจเจปมาทัฏฐานาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิ number six วิคาลโภจนาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิ number seven นัจจกีตวาทิเทวิสุขตัสสนามาลกันธาวิเลบานธารณามันดนาวิบูสนัตถานาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิ อุจจาสยนามหาสยนาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิ
ย อิมานิอัตถสิกขาปทานิสัมมาดิยามินิอัตถสิกขาปทานิสัมมาดิยามิ Oh, okay. Let me repeat it again. Imani atta sikha patani samadhiyami. Imani atta sikha patani samadhiyami. Imani atta sikha patani samadhiyami.
Imaniyata sikha padani acce kangrandi diva upasada siddhava sena tomme upasaga upasiga buddhehi sadhu kanakandang gatva appamadena rakhita bani. Okay, prostrate 3 times and be seated. So I think you may take a little break, and that would be great if you can be back here just before 8 o'clock. Okay. 就你们先8点钟之前要回来，先休息一下。有没有上洗手间的？还有什么事要做的？